Hello and welcome to the IRS Rail webinar session on building resilience into rail supply chain operations, produced by the International Railway Summit in association with Supply On. I'm Joel Somura, the Managing Director of IRS Events, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session. So at the last count, we had just over 90 people from 40 countries registered for today. Welcome to those of you attending our webinar program for the first time, and welcome back if you've joined us before. During the G20 summit last weekend in Rome, President Biden convened a meeting with 15 other world leaders to discuss supply chain resilience. The pandemic has caused a short-term shock to the supply system worldwide, and climate change is also affecting it long-term. The leaders agreed to work on making sure we have access to all the products we need and to foster greater international cooperation to tackle supply chain disruptions. Manufacturers and their customers are severely impacted by material scarcity, increased freight costs, port congestion, and difficult demand forecasting, as well as political issues such as Brexit and trade conflicts. What are the impacts on the rail sector's supply chain, and how can we build in resilience to avoid future disruptions? This will be the topic of our debate for the next 90 minutes. I'm delighted to have the support of leading experts as speakers with us today. In particular, we're grateful for the support from Supply On, which allows us to provide this important debate for anyone to watch for free. Supply On is a leading expert in digital supply chain management. Many of the world's key manufacturers and now a growing number of rail operators and rolling stock manufacturers rely on Supply On's shared supply chain collaboration platform to manage the complex and dynamic supply partnerships. So I look forward to learning about Supply On's expertise on supply chain resilience from the account manager and senior consultant for supply chain management, Sasha Korbes, shortly. I'm equally grateful to Christian Pirsalu from Rail Baltica for sharing his expertise with us today. This is an interactive session. You're invited to participate proactively in the discussion. So there's a chat screen where you're welcome to share your feedback and your messages with other attendees. There's a Q&A section. You're welcome to send in your questions, and you'll also be able to give a thumbs up sign to other people's questions there as well. Some of these questions will be asked by the moderator during the Q&A session. We have two polls today, so they will be asking for your opinions on a couple of questions during the course of the session. And there's also a handout section where you'll be able to download the presentations from today's webinar. And finally, at the end of the webinar, you'll see a pop-up to ask for your evaluation of the session. If you miss that, you also get an email from us as well. Your feedback is very important to us, so do spend a few minutes responding to the evaluation questions. We're tweeting live during this webinar, so you can follow us at Rail Summit, and please use our hashtag IRS Rail Webinars. If you enjoy the session, do continue the debate on Twitter and LinkedIn. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to our guide for today, Mary Hewitt. Mary is a partner in Deloitte's strategy and analytics practice, and she specializes in transport and the UK rail sector. Until August this year, she was strategy and policy director at Arriva UK Trains. And prior to that, she was managing director of Chiltern Railways in the UK. So I think Mary's experience in management and strategy for railways makes her a perfect moderator for today's debate on building resilience into rail supply chain operations. So Mary, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jules, and good afternoon, everyone, wherever you may be in the world. As a panel, we're certainly internationally dispersed, and I think the audience is as well, and we are in for a great debate, I think. I would just like to reiterate what Jules said. Please do get your questions coming in. This is your opportunity to test the expertise of some of the panel and to ask your burning questions, and we will answer them after both speakers have given their presentations. I was just thinking about what I was going to say in my introduction over the weekend, and this webinar is perfectly timed in more ways than one. Resilience is top of mind in almost every single sector globally currently. We've got an energy crisis in China causing problems in supply chains. We've got Tesla earlier this year who stopped production at one of their California factories because of supply chain issues. Apple, normally renowned for having one of the best supply chains in their industry, has recently announced that they're reducing the manufacture of the iPhone 13 by almost 10%, again, due to supply chain issues. Now, these may not be railway supply chain issues, but we operate in a global market these days. It's not just Tesla, it's not just Apple, it's not just what's going on in China, it's all industries are facing the same challenges. And some of them, the Apple and Tesla, it was down to semiconductor chips. And Intel, one of the largest manufacturers, said it may take several years to catch up on the manufacture. So having resilience and thinking about it now is critical as we recover from COVID as well. In Googling this, although my favourite supply chain shortage that I read about was a ramen shortage in Russia, which I thought rolled off the tongue nicely and obviously very critical for those people that love ramen. But it's every part of life has been affected. We're all facing the same challenges, I think, wherever we sit in the world, whether that be labour, whether that be the skills, in addition to skilled labour, whether that be parts, or whether that be a sustainability challenge. We're all trying to address the same challenges and we're all fighting for limited resources as well. At the same time, technology is evolving. We need to embrace its use. And how do we actually factor that in to build resilience? How can technology be used to improve the resilience as well? Customers are becoming more demanding, and whilst the railway supply chain might not be directly customer facing, ultimately the end users just want a railway that they can use as well, whether that be freight or whether that be passengers. So you need to think about how you factor the customer into this and have a customer-centric approach to it as well. At the same time, managing various other risks, various other global risks. The main one for me, in the role that I'm doing at the moment, is very much what's happening in Glasgow at the moment. So whilst 90 eyes might be on this webinar, I think many of the world's eyes are on Glasgow and the discussions happening there. The decisions and commitments that are going to be made over the next 2 weeks at COP26 will impact railway operations in more ways than one. It will impact the supply chain. It will impact demand. It will impact investment, whether that be investment in the infrastructure through electrification, in new trains and rolling stock, or whether that be investment in infrastructure that supports the railway. Either way, we know the railway has to be a key part of driving the sustainability agenda as well. How does the supply chain deal with that? How do you build in resilience when your own supply chain might not be as resilient? And how do you think about it in a kind of holistic way and a net zero way when you're facing all these other challenges as well? From a Deloitte perspective, we're increasingly seeing it from our clients. They want to understand what our sustainability goals are. They want to understand what we're doing in this space, and it's the same the world over as this becomes very much front and centre, and even more so going forwards. And then finally, for me, we need to think about innovation. How do we embrace innovation, and how do we use innovation to drive a more resilient supply chain as well? So, as Jules said, we're about to launch a poll, so very much would like your opinions on this. And the first question is, which aspects of your supply chain have been affected during COVID-19? Planning, supply availability, increased costs, or delivery punctuality problems? And please select all that apply to you. And we will see the answers shortly. Now, whilst you're doing that, I would like to introduce our first guests. So we have two excellent speakers today. So Christian Piersalou is currently the Chief Procurement Officer for Rail Baltica. He has a huge amount of international experience in both rail and energy, including, I'm pleased to say, rail infrastructure in the UK and some of the largest projects that have taken place over the last 10 to 15 years. He's also been involved in procurement in large energy projects in Estonia, to the tune of over £2 billion. Currently, in his role, he has overarching procurement responsibility for the Rail Baltica global project, and I'm sure he will say more shortly. Just before we go to that, I think if we take a look at the poll results, and we should be able to see, if we close it in 5 seconds, and then we should be able to see the results. So we'll just give you final answers come in. And if we close the poll now, we can see the answers. So what have people said? So actually, it's quite an even split. So we could speculate that everybody's had issues in all of them, and so you've ticked all 4. But supply availability is the largest at 29%, with all of the others coming in at 24%. I find that quite interesting, but not surprising. So Christian, over to you. But my first question is, what do you make of those poll results?
Thank you, Mary, for this introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. And indeed, this poll correlates very well with the information and feedback that we have obtained from the market recently as well, and that we continue to obtain. And this is also leading us into to my presentation, I believe, very well. We have seen many challenges. And I think we continue to see them over the next few years to come, hopefully less so than we think today. And my presentation today is about a survey that we did from the Rail Baltica mega project perspective end of last year. And I think it's a good time currently to look back at it and really see how the results have affected us. So let me tell you a little bit about, first of all, Rail Baltica. For those of you that might not be very familiar with the project, then it's a missing link of the TEN-T railway network in Europe. And as you can see, this light blue line is what we are constructing from Tallinn to the Lithuanian-Polish border through 3 Baltic countries. And this is currently our remit. We are moving ahead with completing designs and moving more and more into the construction phase of the European gauge new railway that we don't currently have in the Baltic countries. The challenges that we have are very unique because there are currently no high-speed railways in the Baltic countries, and to this scale there are no European gauge railways either. So the expertise that we are often after from the procurement perspective doesn't really exist to that extent that we need it for our project. And that brings us to the point where there are very good international companies that can deliver the expertise required for the railway construction and design, who might not know the local circumstances very well. And then there are local companies in the Baltic countries that understand the local circumstances very well, but don't have that level of the expertise required for delivering such a railway project. And so we, together with the COVID impact, are put in a very unique situation where we have to understand what the market is doing and what we can do for our project. So we do have a practice of undertaking market research. And just as the COVID unfolded after the first wave, we realized that because of the uniqueness of the project and because of the changing market, we need to get a more direct feedback to understand what we have to do, how we have to take the project procurement policy and procurement practice forward in order to make sure that we get the results that we are after through the procurement procedures that we deliver on a daily basis on the ground. So what we did, we conducted a survey and asked questions regarding the impact that the COVID has had on the supply market that is more interested in the Rail Baltica project. And also we asked their vision on the future, plus some additional questions regarding what would be beneficial for the project or for the procurement practice from the supplier market perspective. And we got responses back from more than 19 countries, out of which about 1/3 was out of the Baltic countries. The mix of suppliers that participated was a very good mix in terms of large, medium-sized and small companies, all fairly equally participating. And also in terms of the sector that they were from, we had almost 1/3 in each: works, goods, and services. And there was also a proportion of companies that participated in the survey that are interested in the Rail Baltica project, but have not yet participated in our tenders. And I hope that by now some of them would have also had this experience as well. The questions that we asked about the COVID impact, we gave quite many choices in terms of the possible impacts to choose from. And the top 3 that we ended up with from the responses was suppliers have requested to improve payment terms. There have been delays or suspension of works, services, or deliveries. And there has been a loss of incoming orders. So these were what we were expecting as well, but we were not expecting them to be particularly the top ones. So we were really kind of confirming to ourselves whether the issues that we thought were significant were indeed significant also from the supply market perspective, and gaining the understanding of what we have to do going forward. So then we asked the question regarding what the picture would be looking like in the opinion of the supply market for the next year and a half. So we got a top 5 from the supplier market advising us that the picture, how it would look going forward, would be that there would be further requests from the suppliers to their clients to improve on payment terms. There will be further delays, further suspensions of work, services, or deliveries. There would be difficulties in obtaining financing, obtaining insurances and guarantees, and there would be increases of pricing as well. And finally, last but not least, the logistics and deliveries problems. So I believe all of you have experienced one or a combination of these at least. And this is something that gave us an overview of the severity of the market's volatility that we will be facing going forward. What we also wanted to understand was the possible cash flow issues and how we should tackle those in light of what we need to deliver for the project. So we asked a question about the advance payments, and of course, as expected, most of the suppliers that responded chose the option of advance payments in a region of 11 to 15% of the contract price, which was rather expected from our point of view, knowing also the overall situation of the market as we expected it might be. But what was surprising to us a little bit was that there was a significant proportion or noticeable proportion of companies that also mentioned that no advance payments would be necessary. As compared to the proportion of up to 5% of contract price, it's a significant proportion of companies that say that they can still handle the cash flow rather well. So that in some respects, the situation is not as grim as we anticipated. But of course, this also comes with the difference in particular sectors, because different market sectors also have had slightly different impacts from the COVID pandemic. And then in light of the Rail Baltica project overarching procurement policy, we wanted to understand whether we are still being reasonable to the market with the requirements that we have established. And almost 80% confirmed back to us that yes, our conditions as they are in the base requirements of the common procurement standards and guidelines that we have for the project are reasonable. However, we did look at the conditions that we have in the procurement policy and asked some additional questions about management and management standards and liquidity ratios to understand more precisely if there is some sort of an issue, or what is a proportion of the market that can meet the requirements, and what we might have to do to improve the competition on our tenders. So from that onwards, we also asked the question regarding the evaluation criteria. What is a preferred evaluation criteria from the point of view of the supplier market? Because one of the aspects was that whilst the market was down between the various COVID waves that we have by now experienced, then one of the questions was to ourselves whether indeed we need to focus on price, or how much we might have to focus on price, noting that the market is already down in some sectors. So we proposed various options, and the top 10 in terms of the evaluation criteria came back, as you can see also on the screen. Of course, proposal price, we always have a certain proportion of the evaluation criteria dedicated to that, but also the time schedule, quality and logic, the terms of delivery, sustainability and business continuity, that with these difficult times has popped up as a rather significant item in terms of the evaluation to be looked at. Also the warranty period, description of the quality management system, for instance, then environmental and green requirements, which is an increasing topic that is being looked at, and that we also are further developing more and more on our project as well into the evaluation criteria requirements. Then previous experience in the particular railway design or construction, also description on environmental management requirements, and occupational and work safety. So overall, there were many views in terms of the evaluation criteria, but almost uniformly the market seemed to support as well that price should not be the only criterion to apply in the tenders of Rail Baltica that we apply for the delivery and implementation of the infrastructure. And the way forward from all this, what we have done then, taking all that into account, we took a look at our procurement policy and procurement practice, and so we established that we have to still make some amendments, because to us it's sometimes also a challenge to attract suppliers into the region, ever more so with the restrictions coming from COVID. So we want to make sure that we offer the chance for competition for companies, as well as ourselves ensure that we have competition in our tenders. So we took a look at the procurement policy. We eased certain requirements, for instance, regarding turnover. We improved the requirements for transparency and avoidance of conflict of interest. We added flexibility in terms of the experience requirements, made them more particular to any specific tender, following the market research that we do for any specific tender, because our practice is more and more to pre-tender, to do the market research and consultation with the supplier market. This is an important step in our procurement practice that we apply. And so based on that gives the ability to then be more flexible for any procurement organization under the project. We've introduced also data protection requirements. That is a new item there. And in terms of our procurement practice, then we have, in addition, also applied more advanced payment mechanisms and undertaken more frequent clarification and briefing sessions with the market. So all in all, we see that the challenges persist, but we see also that there are possibilities for us to consult with the market and talk to the companies interested in our tenders through the market research exercises that we do, and improve as we go on, because the procurement policy and procurement practice are never set, never cast in stone. They are always changing according to what the project requires, where we are with the project, and what we need to deliver and ensure competition in our tenders. So in addition, I will not go into too much detail on this slide, but I'm sure you will have the slide deck also to review afterwards. There are many additional slides also at the latter part, in the latter parts of this presentation set. You'll be able to get the information in a bit more detail regarding the market research that we have undertaken, or market outlook survey that we did. And in addition, there will be a lot of information available for you on our website as well. So please do take a look at the website. There is a link also on this slide to the article where we have published the market outlook survey results. And please do take a look at these additional slides. So thank you very much. I hope that this brief presentation has provided you with some overview of what we have done and why we have done it. And if there are any questions on this, then I'm sure we can find a time and place to discuss them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Christian. And I apologise for the very, very bright, well, I'm not sorry for the very bright sunlight coming in my bedroom window, but some fascinating information in there. You know, it probably must be really valuable to you as well. So thank you very much for that. Before I launch the second speaker, I would just like to, before I introduce the second speaker, I'd just like to launch the second poll. So that it should be on your screens now. What change is most needed for supply chains in the coming years? More diversified supply chain options, more domestic sourcing, better tracking, or greater digitalization, automation of processes? So please do put your answers in. Whilst you are doing that, I would like to introduce our second speaker. So I'd like to welcome Sasha Kobes. Thank you very much for being with us today. Sasha is currently the account manager and senior consultant at Supply On. And I'd just like to reiterate what Jules said at the beginning. Thank you very much for sponsoring this today. He's been with Supply On for 10 years, but has more than 20 years consulting experience across a range of issues, including supply chain management, purchasing and strategic sourcing, and transportation management, just to name a few. He really focuses on helping clients to integrate and optimize their processes and how they can address digitalization as well. And he currently works with a host of global industrial companies as well. So we'll just close the poll in 5 seconds. So I hope you've all been busy answering. So if we close the poll now, we can then see what your results were. So this one is more varied, actually. So we can see that actually the vast majority of people think more diversified supply chain options are needed, closely followed by greater digitalization, automation of processes. Personally, that was also my answer as well. I think we need to embrace the kind of the digital and the technology to take it forwards. But Sasha, what do you make of the poll? And over to you. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, thank you, Mary. Okay, yes, also good afternoon from my side to all global participants. I'm Sasha Kobes from Supply On. I'm a senior consultant and sales manager. And I would like to give you a short overview, some content like a case study, how we can get more resilience in our operational supply chain by integrating our partners and our processes. Let's start. In the current slide, what you can see, you can see in the middle of the slide an example visualization. So this picture shows a classical example for a globalized supply chain. That means not everything what is required for a classical network provider or rolling stock manufacturer is completely sourced locally. We do have also global supply chains, and sometimes we also not only have one-step supply chains, we also have sometimes sub-suppliers. And this picture show as an example that we have global networks which need to be known, which need to be managed, and which have some impact to our business processes. And the mission of Supplion is to enable secure, efficient, intelligent management of end-to-end supply chains, to market, to operational rail supply chain provider or operators, right? And to help you to make it more efficient and more resilient, your supply chain, to manage it end to end. We do have some stress factors, some challenges. On the bottom of the slide, you can see we do have changing challenges, sometimes market changes. We have innovation impact, which require from our side change management activities, which also have impact to our supply chain, natural disasters. We do have COVID, trade regulations, compliance topics, and so on and so on. And the question is, how do we manage our supply chain and the challenges, and to make it in an efficient and way, and to make our supply chain processes more resilient? And there are some questions what we need to ask ourselves. One question is on the left-hand side. Question number one is, do we have some tools what we use to get our partners, our topics, our processes managed? This is one question, because we can see it's a big difference to manage processes and business partners in a manual way via email, PDF files, or send email with Excel files. It's really required to be here quite efficient. The second question also here is, are all internal departments connected to our supply chain? Because we are not only talking about purchasing, we talk about many internal different departments. We have our operations, right? We have spare parts. We have some development projects to be managed, right, in time. We do have quality checks, supplier development, strategic sourcing, operational procurement. So a wide range of internal teams and departments working on different topics in parallel. And the question is, how can we make life easier for these teams, and how to get them supported by automated processes? The third question is, how do we detect deviations in our supply chain? So we are planning, we are ordering, we are communicating, but something is not fulfilled as it was planned, expected, agreed. There is a question, do we need to wait until the problem comes up, or do we have some chances to detect problems, upcoming problems in advance? For example, suppliers getting in financial problems. So this information is normally very fast and early available. We don't need to wait until the material supply is stopped. How do we manage deviations in the supply chain that changes itself, right? Other questions on the right-hand side, we can see how efficient are the internal departments handling these challenges, these corrections in the supply chain. So here we talk about speed, which can cause a lot of problems, risks, and costs at the end. And we need also to face maybe reduce number of people which are traveling, right? So also the turnover topic is coming here into our attention. So therefore we need to be efficient, cost efficient. Other question might be, do you have access to relevant data of your supply chain? Because the supply chain transactions, there is a lot of data produced and generated. And the question is, do we have access? And can we use this data in an intelligent way, an automated way, to see and take our decisions, to get early warnings and to make good decisions here via integrated processes. And the other last question, what I gave here in my slide is, are we able to use this supply chain data? So via Supplion, we will see later on, there is a big data lake where we are collecting data from the rail supply chain and make it easy to use, available for different operational teams. Okay, so this is so far the mission of Supplion. Supplion, we are connecting customers, which is maybe a rail network provider. We can see it here on the top. The yellow symbol is a rail network provider. I saw in the participant list, we have today from many countries, people participating, which represent rail network providers from different countries. And in each country, we have our rail network providers. They have their suppliers, right, which are maybe rolling stock provider here in the example screen, but it might be also service providers. And we can see here in the picture that, they are operating. We have different departments in each company, and these counterparts need to work each other, right? And Supplion's topic here is number one, is we are connecting customers and suppliers in a global network. That means many suppliers are already included in the network and can be very easy activated for a new rail network provider. Or they can work via Supplion with multiple network providers. You will see it in the next slide. Key important is not only to focus on single departments or topics, to have a holistic view, so cross-functional processes and departments. Supplion is covering here, cross-functional topics, tools, and processes. This is important to have here one platform for many use cases. We try to cover all these relevant cases and to develop a portfolio which can be easy scaled up, right, in the time when you need something. And topic number 4 is to make data usable, make it visible, and analyze it in an automated way, and make intelligent proposal how to manage the supply chain, to make it supply chain visible, and to make some intelligent automations here with the data to get effort reduced, to get more speed, more efficiency. And also very important is Supplion is a company which is independent, so we have no capital investors, we have no impacts on the data side. So therefore we can guarantee that we have data sovereignty. So that means your data is shared only with you, with no other participants. This is also quite important. But we provide a network, and with this network, it is possible to generate synergy effects. So that means if we have here multiple rail network providers using Supplion, they have the same suppliers, then they have synergy effects because the same supplier uses the solution. And if a process is shared with multiple partners, it's easier to use, and it makes life much more easier. And I will show later on some other examples. You can see on the next slide that we have here railway, automotive, air and manufacturing customers in all over the world. Supplion is represented. We not only offer tools, we have rollout, onboarding, data support here. So we help you to get your supply chain digitized, to get these applications used. We do a usage monitoring and also assure that the process are compliant and that the quality of the usage is in the right way, which is expected. You can see here, to manage the supply chain, we need to manage supplier. We need to manage a strategic sourcing process, which sometimes has some development aspects. We have the classical procure-to-pay process. We have supply chain collaboration, which is in the enhanced part from the purchase order to delivery to the invoicing part. Some suppliers are so important in case of problems that we need to synchronize their production planning with the order process to assure that we get the material which was ordered in time and quality. Sometimes we have transport topics, and we have also, the last topic is we have quality topics. We need to qualify suppliers, and Supplion is providing here a holistic approach. And on the next slide, we can see there are multi-tools available for all these areas, the functional areas which are presented. We have many tools here available behind. And this big toolbox is used by many global companies. And this is powerful tool set which not need to be developed for each customer again and again. Yeah, we have a central portal, different business suites. We make data visible, right? But the key topics are that we have shared supplier network community, business partner are actively managed. So we have also support, and international consulting services are also available for customer all around the world. And here we can see on the next slide this is the future rail supply chain vision, that the rail customers, right, are connected with their separate departments. We can see the orange picture, or also the rolling stock manufacturers, that all the departments are connected via a central cloud solution, which is completely independent, and that the rail suppliers are also connected with the different departments. And Supplion is able to connect to provide a rail solution. So that means it's not a customized solution. These are standard applications available for the whole rail industry for the different players. And the synergy effects are between multiple customers and suppliers which are using the same solution in a standardized way. If we look now to an example, if we look to a classical material supply process, we have different data sources, from a rolling stock manufacturer or from a rail network provider, right, and from their suppliers. And we have different systems which taking responsibility for different processes and business objects, and Supplion can offer here for all supply chain steps, from the strategic sourcing activities via capacity planning, supplier quality development, demand purchasing process, production planning and synchronization to assure that they deliver, to a transport process from material supplier to the site where we need the material, different status information, right, to the claim quality invoicing process. So here are many different use cases which can be offered via Supplion. And Supplion is able here to do here automated processes, and this automated processes can be covered mostly by few tools. So with few tools, I can cover many use cases. So that's from my side. This was a short overview what different business processes can be completely automated by integration of business stakeholders and processes. And Supplion is an international platform for the rail supply chain community is here available, and we are open for new partners which are interested to get synergy effects with the network. Okay, so I'm open for any questions and discussions.
Great. Thank you very much, Sasha. Another very interesting presentation with lots of information in there. As you can download the presentations on the handouts, as has been said before. Yes. We now have the next 45 minutes. We're going to open it up to a Q&A. I note that we have not had any Q&As given in by the audience yet, despite those fascinating discussions. So please do type them in. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you type them in, then we can ask the panelists what they are. But to kick us off, let's start with COVID. It is front and centre of everyone. Obviously, the supply chain has been severely affected by COVID. Sasha, to you first, do you think the lessons have been learned and will be implemented for the next major crisis that the rail industry faces from a COVID, and what lessons are they?
Mary, yes, I guess COVID was helping us to learn what we could and should do. And I guess we got some transparency because of COVID. We had some changed frame conditions. And I guess some homeworks we had the chance to do it much earlier, to integrate our processes, to get more insurance, to get more flexibility in the process, to integrate with our partners. And what we see is that this COVID pandemic impact is now forcing up the activities to get more digitalization. So therefore, I see from my side that we have some lessons learned, and we learned that we need to be more agile, we need to be more flexible, more efficient, faster in learning from changed frame conditions, and that we cannot manage everything in a manual way. That sending emails with attached Excel files has a limited capacity on my side as an infrastructure provider, and also my partners have a limited capacity to work on emails. And from sending an email out with a request, the time is running, right? And this is sometimes, if I'm doing a survey, we have customers, they're sending a survey to 2,000 participants. It's really huge workload to monitor if 2,000 participants were answering to our survey. And we can completely automate a reminding process. We can completely take the data consolidation, the analysis of surveys. This is a topic which is very easy to digitize. And if I do something like this in a manual way, I can only do it in a limited complexity. And if I'm climbing up to a high number of transactions or suppliers, then maybe the admin workload is too high.
Great, thank you. A very comprehensive answer. Christian, what are your views? Anything you'd like to add to that?
Maybe just a couple of points. Sasha already covered quite a lot of ground there, but the COVID situation has certainly pointed out the weaknesses in the information flow, in the ways of working, and has pointed out also strong teams, the teams that are still strongly together, even despite the COVID. So I think one of the things definitely that it has pointed out to us is that in the Baltic countries, we have a very strong e-tendering practice in all the countries. We have national e-tendering systems, and everything happens electronically. So I think that's one of the very positive things that we have seen. This practice helps a lot in these difficult times. We have seen through our tenders also the challenges related to getting the documents, especially when we deal with possible rejection ground issues that come from the European Procurement Directive that we have to check. Then depending on the different countries where the participants are from, it is very difficult to get this information because of the restrictions, and people can't go to the authorities to ask certain documents. So I think from that angle, we have seen the challenges that we didn't maybe anticipate beforehand to that extent. And definitely I very much support Sasha's point on the new ways of working. That has shown, I think, a lot of good premise to take these tools forward. Also, I think it has pointed out the habits that we have of not being able to really walk along with these new ways of working. So I think that is one thing that we need to work on ourselves. People are slaves of their habits usually, so I think that is one of the things that definitely it has pointed out as well. And it has shown us the way to teamwork, and also shown the importance of, I think, still the significance of seeing people in real life. which I think we all can relate to.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. No, great. And actually, that final point is a good segue into my second question, which was very much about collaboration. You know, historically, we've had quite, well, I speak from my own personal experience, quite transactional relationships with our supply chain. During COVID, actually, it became a bit more of a partnership and working together to solve issues together. And how we could address issues with a kind of the approach to a win-win goals as well. So what's your views on how we can better collaborate and the role of collaboration, and how people might be able to move from a transactional to a partnership relationship? So Christian, would you like to go first?
This is one of the things that we have been working on. Thank you for the question. It's a very challenging question, I think, especially in the Baltic region. We have very much this traditional approach historically, where you have the contractor and then you have the client. So I think there also the teamwork is important, and what we see, especially in these kind of volatile market circumstances, that co-location, for instance, is one of the things that we should really think about. Co-location, especially on key people level, where you have maybe the engineers that can make decisions sitting together and working things through, instead of pinging emails back and forth and sending letters and waiting for another letter to return in a week's or 2 weeks' time. So I think especially with these restrictions and the logistics issues, the packages and mail and everything else also impacted, I think it's something that really helps. I would really think that co-location and these partnering practices will help going forward.
Great, thank you. Sasha, your views on collaboration and moving to a true partnership from a transactional relationship?
Exactly, yes, yeah, Mary. So from my point of view, it's an important topic. I guess the changed frame conditions require a much more precise focus on the partnership and what is the potential of the partnership. And here, I guess if we doing here a bit business fair play, as it was mentioned before by Christian, yeah, to give early forecast information, right? And there are ways in advance to make it more transparent, to make it more plannable. We can make some predictive here information also for suppliers available. We can show data about the performance of suppliers, and also what is important is maybe, so if we have some critical requirements, we can make also here additional transparency in the procurement strategic sourcing process to not only ask for a time, quantity, and pieces, to also make a wide, more qualified view. What can supplier provide? What is the service offering here? Do we have maybe some special services which can be taken here into account? And sometimes it's required that you have a wider scope of qualification of suppliers and their service offerings. And this is sometimes also helpful here to see. And via supply on, it's easier for suppliers, for example, to integrate their processes. So therefore, they can reduce administration. They can operate faster. Yeah. So if I'm doing EDI, for example, I can reduce the processing time. I allow the supplier to be faster in processing data, right? Or maybe to see important changes, to reduce the administration workload on supplier side. So if I'm posting out emails and Excel files and a lot of data which is not structured, there's a high effort on supplier side to see, oh, what is now relevant? I'm receiving 10 emails for the same topic. So what is the latest status? I have 2 people which need to manage. And here it's possible, for example, to guide suppliers, to guide suppliers, we in our solutions, for example, we implemented a lot of dashboards. And if a supplier comes to a solution, they see it first, a dashboard, and they can see what is critical, what is important, what needs to be managed first, and what is a topic for the next days and weeks, so that supplier get a chance to prioritize and reduce their workload and get a simplified way of working with my partners, with my customers.
And if I may add to that, this is a very good point that you make, Sasha. I would add to that this is something that we see as well, where the virtual design environment, for instance, for delivering infrastructure design is very useful, which we practice as well. Yeah. So I think that there are sort of these different aspects of seeing the information flow and managing the information flow, and also getting first-hand information quickly from the supply chain before you see that problems happen, to see the risks so that you can actually do something with them before you end up sort of facing the problem. Yes.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes also it's important sometimes to have a holistic view. So collect data from customer, from supplier, and show it in a consolidated way so that customer and supplier have the same view on a business case, right, to make a decision and to make it transparent. Why do we need to act here and what is missing? And sometimes we have in our system internal data which is not shown to suppliers, so they don't have the information what is required. Yeah, so we have a delivery of material which is not on the quality level what we need. So the material is put on restricted quality blocking stock, right? And the supplier is expecting the material was delivered, the customer is happy, everything is usable, but it is not the case, right? And from the point of receiving incorrect material with a low quality which cannot be used, we can directly give feedback to our supplier so that they see in the dashboard, here something is below the required stock level in the maintenance and repair area. We delivered, but we don't have the stock level in the right quality, and we need to react now. And we can directly give an early warning to suppliers that here we need to do something, some corrective actions. Yeah. From outside, from supplier side, it looks everything fine. They delivered the right quantity in time, but from customer side, not. And this information need to be shared very fast.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. Anybody who's ever worked with me, whether it be working in my team or, as a partner or in the supply chain, and was like, flag issues early, let's work together and let's share as much data as possible, that's a good opportunity to move to an audience question, which is kind of linked into this. And please do keep your questions coming for those watching. But so from Roger Schmidt, how does supply chain integration deal with proprietary aspects of suppliers and their tendency to guard their inputs and processes and treat them as internal? So very good question. Sasha, over to you first.
Sorry, I had a little audio problem. Please, can you repeat?
Yes, sorry, of course. So it's how does supply chain integration deal with proprietary aspects of suppliers and their tendency to guard their inputs and processes and treat them as internal? It's essentially, this reluctance to share their own information because it's their information, their data, their processes, and therefore kind of commercially sensitive and also highly valuable, some IP.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, yeah. Via supply chain integration, we have different ways how we can handle intellectual property from suppliers. So, for example, in development processes, we always have here very high data protection level. The customers of SupplyOn, we have not capital investors. We do have industrial players like Bosch, ZF Continental, right? They are using our solution themselves, and they are themselves competitors. So data security and protection of intellectual property has an extreme high priority for the shareholders and our company itself. And via SupplyOn, we have integrated or we have tools, for example, where we can manage development processes. And this development processes, so we can, in Supplion, for example, I can manage a development project. And this development project, which we are doing together, yeah, I can make a project plan in our tool and put an interdisciplinary team from the customer and from the supplier, quality development, sales, purchasing, all together in one project team, and let them work in a virtual project team together. And there, of course, the customer is sharing technical drawings, right? They get to be improved by the supplier. And there we are setting up virtual rooms for development projects where we do have a limited access only for the customer and the supplier. So, and we have extreme high data security technologies on Supplion. That means we synchronize data also for user accounts. That means if we have a development team on the customer side and there's an engineer leaving, for example, the railway company of Belgium, which is using Supplion, they can synchronize the user data with Supplion, and in the same day when the human resource department kick him out and stop the SAP access rights, Supplion is automatically, the user account is blocked. And we do here extreme high efforts to protect the data and the user access only to a limited number of users. And also from the contractual framework, we offer also management of agreements between customer and supplier. Also, if we have an RFQ process, for example, where we have access to development and purchasing and strategic people, we have also here the possibility to strictly limitize the access to the data which is handled in the platform. And we can also take some data protection agreements into the process. That means some people from outside, which are invited to join a development project or an RFQ, need to confirm in advance the data protection agreement and rules before they can have access. So this is really, really important via Supplion. So not the rail industry, we also have the air supply industry. So that means nearly the complete air industry of Europe is using in a consolidated boost aerospace consortium. Supplion is a branch solution, and they have also some companies, they producing weapons, and in the weapon industry, the data security also Airbus is extreme. So no other branch has more restricted security rules like the air and weapon industry. Do we have further questions?
Well, I was going to give Christian an opportunity to answer that question first. Is that an issue you faced, Christian, at Rail Baltica or previously, and how have you addressed it?
Maybe I will give a slightly different answer, but I think along the same lines as Sasha, that yes, we do have these considerations because we are also building safety critical infrastructure. So that the security of information and data securities is very much on the plate all the time. And I would say from the point of view of the client, what's important is to make sure that there is system control, that there is policy in place to make sure that the right controls are applied and everybody's aware of that. And of course, depending on what exactly we're talking about, what data we are talking about, then we also have standards in place to tackle the information flow and security. And of course, to control who accesses the data. So there has to be a controlled list of people that can access data within an organization. That needs to be on a need-to-know basis, usually, not for convenience as such. And also training people, because people have to understand what information can be shared or not. Because even if somebody's working in a particular role, Do they really understand the data, the importance of the data, and what the impact might be if something happens to that data? So I think the awareness of the people involved is very much key, and that has to be part of the training. Now, from the point of view of the supplier, what I would suggest very much is to make sure that you make it clear what data is sensitive. So if you do plan to share any sensitive data, please make sure that you indicate it as such, that you make it clear that this is sensitive, and you give also your reasons why it is that way, so the client can understand what they're dealing with. Because it can be a situation where, from your perspective, you might give certain information just on an expectation that the client will understand that this is sensitive. The client might not view it the same way sometimes, because you're working from different standpoints. So please make sure you indicate that. And also, you can always check what the client's policies are. So does a client have the policy in place to address and manage such data in a confidential manner? Do they understand how it has to be done? And of course, I would hope that sensitive data is being also subjected to some contractual clauses. So if in contract, please make sure that you have the relevant clauses in your contracts, or if you have no particular service contract, whether you have in place an NDA, for instance, to cover that, or if even no NDA, you might still be willing to share some information. So please make sure that the client has an understanding of what information they hold, and that they have the policy in place. So maybe these are just sort of the overall comments to remind everybody of what challenges we are facing, and of course on a infrastructure mega project, we always have these questions ourselves as well.
Yes, it's certainly one that it resonates with me as well. And the direction of travel in the UK rail industry is all about collaboration and open data. And I think there's a level of maturity and about how you approach it as well. But so great question. So yeah, please do keep your questions coming from the audience. So actually, this was one I meant to ask previously, because it linked into what Sasha, something that you were saying. But actually, when we're talking about digitalization, and often we think of the supply chain as large organizations, but actually the supply chain is made up from very, very tiny 1-2 person organizations right through to multinational global organizations with deep pockets. But how can we integrate local and small businesses into our supply chain, particularly where they may not have the digital infrastructure? And I would also add to that, they may not have the digital infrastructure, and they may not have the ability to invest in it as well. So as the rest of the world digitizes, how do we ensure that we bring the supply chain on the journey with us?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mary. It's a very important question. Small business and also local business have different requirements. So local business, we have a language topic. That means supplier, sometimes they talk their language. So, you need to provide a solution. If we make an RFQ or send a purchase order, supplier expect that they receive information in their language, in Romanian language, in Polish language, in Italian, France, Japanese, Mandarin, English, of course, Turkish, and so on. And so this is Supplion is providing a solution which is multi-language supporting. We take the business content and show it labeled in the home language of the user. And for small business partners which not have a big IT infrastructure, we developed interfaces which give a simplified and easy access to business content. And this along the whole process chain. That means we can integrate a purchase order process with a company like Siemens. They want to have everything EDI fully automated in, out, zack, zack, from purchase order to invoice. And if we have a company which is maybe 2 people, right, very small, local, then we provide a simplified process which is a web interface. Yeah, for example, in Polish language with a simplified user interface, easy to use, so that the people can get easy and fast access to the business content on the local business partner side. On the customer side, we don't want to lose comfort and efficiency, and Supplion is translating to the customer fully automated processes. So that means you don't see any difference between big and small suppliers. Supplion is translating, and some suppliers use a simplified web interface according to the infrastructure, and the big one are fully automated, integrated to the system. And what we also see for local small business partners, maybe they need to have hotline support. Maybe they have not the IT knowledge, and therefore Supplion is providing a 24-hour multi-language support hotline. That means in China, they can call in the Chinese morning time and ask in Chinese language a hotline expert how to solve this problem, because they have a question they not understand. And yes, this is the reason. So to make the process at the end successful, you need to provide a hotline, multi-language application, multi-language, and a simplified process for partners which have not big infrastructure.
Yeah, great. So it's actually, we talk about the kind of the customer and think the end user, but in this case, it's actually being kind of customer centric in terms of the people we're working with as well. So Christian, have you got anything else you would like to add to that answer? Again, another comprehensive answer from Sasha.
Thank you, Sasha. And I liked some of the points, especially the language barrier point, which we also face quite often, which is that we are a project in the Baltics, but the official language, the working language of the project is English. So we have, in addition, Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian languages that are local languages. So that very much sort of creates a unique mix of different aspects to consider. But regarding the small businesses, then this is always a challenge, I think, for both sides. From the contracting authority or client side, it's a question of who can provide the sustainability of services or works during the period that we need them. And if we're talking about really small companies, are they able to provide us with the range of capabilities that are needed? Are they able to provide us with warranties? Do we have a risk, and what is the level of risk with a small company to obtain the warranties and to obtain the ability to manage risks, because they don't have that level of resource, and such large projects always have things that change here or there. So there is a lot of challenges in that. So what we tend to do is we give information on our website, for instance, regarding the procurement procedures. We are very transparent. We publish the tender reports on which tenderers have applied, which tenderers have won. So the smaller suppliers can also understand what the market is. So if they don't particularly qualify maybe for the tenders directly themselves, they understand what the market is. They can approach these other companies on the market and partner up with them to then obtain the knowledge, obtain the ability to provide the services locally through them. And for these, especially for the international companies, it would be great to have these local companies that have the local knowledge but don't have the size to then partner up or provide this knowledge and capability to them. So these are definitely aspects that we understand, but it's not always easy to provide these opportunities ourselves. We have done something along the lines of various framework agreements. So we have one framework agreement called the Expert Services Framework, where we have also signed framework agreements with smaller suppliers for ad hoc services. But if we talk about large infrastructure design or construction packages, then of course that's a different matter. So a slightly different perspective, I believe.
Yeah, no, but it's an interesting way, and I sit here as a native English speaker, and I do acknowledge how fortunate I am and some of the challenges, and with Ariva operated in 14 countries, and even then, where English was the first language, but a native Brit take it for granted. But actually, in the same vein, another really interesting question, and Christian, you touched on this a little in your answer, but in terms of kind of local SMEs, actually, how do we stop them from disappearing when there's pressure on reducing costs or longer invoice terms? We saw that at the start of your presentation, that people were requesting different payment terms. So what more can we do to support them? And is that an area that you're focused on, kind of from a Rail Baltica perspective?
It's something I think that maybe has to work on a different level. If we talk about the SMEs as a combination as such. But from the project perspective, what we do is we provide a procurement plan, of course. We publish the procurement plan on our website, and we collect the interest of the market. And through these various activities and through the publications and communication with the market, we are hopefully seriously able to provide sufficient information for the smaller suppliers as well, so that they can plan their activities and involvement. So I think there is a challenge also for these small companies to put the effort in to obtain these opportunities, because often, especially for very tiny companies, at the time when they are the busiest is the time when they should be looking for new opportunities. So it's always a trick. On the other hand, though, I think also smaller companies are financially more agile in a way that they don't have that level of liability that maybe some larger companies have. So I think from that angle, in the world that we live in for the Rail Baltica project, maybe they have even better opportunities than they had before in some respect.
Maybe one comment from my side.
Yeah, I was about to invite you to comment, Sasha. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess the question include pressure to suppliers, reducing cost, and longer invoice terms. So these are very hard topics sometimes to manage. Yeah. The question is, how can we reduce cost? And one way is to help suppliers to reduce costs. So, for example, we can in the strategic sourcing, we can take over, for example, from suppliers. We can say we are reducing the cost. We take out the transport cost, and managing is from the customer perspective with much better transport conditions. So we help suppliers to reduce the cost, some part, keep it out, and replace it by better conditions from a customer. Or what we can do is that we really help suppliers to reduce the total costs. For example, in case that we have suppliers with serious quality problems, right? We have the chance that we make some supplier qualification activities which help the supplier to increase the quality of the material, right? And that means we have less claims at the end. We have a better long-term condition. We have reduced quote of material which is wasted because of quality problems, right? And if we are not learning now from the current problems, we will repeat it again and again. And this is wasting of value from customer and supplier perspective. And other topics are also to help suppliers to do a better performance on the on-time delivery, for example. So we can help suppliers if they forget to deliver in time, forget to take an order, place it to the internal system. We can early identify if they're not reading the purchase order and can get early warnings. We don't need to wait until that time when they need to pay the urgent emergency transport, right? Because something is forgotten, right? And these are some topics where we can help suppliers to make early available information. Hey, there are some problems on your side. We will come back to you later on if if you're not reacting, but we can help them early to do this way. Other topics are also some that we offer to supplier flexible financing options. So this is also possible via integrated service that we offer suppliers options, to say, okay, you can get earlier payments, and we have some scalability on some commercial factors, so we can take suppliers into a decision process, not to drill it down, to ask suppliers if they agree with this and this conditions to get this and this payment in this time frame.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is an element of flexibility and agility, and recognizing that different organizations face different challenges.
And we can also make early available. So if we see some supplier have financial problems, we can make it early available, this information, and we can treat them by covering this information. And we are synchronizing with external databases to early show and monitor this supplier on a critical path, and maybe then I can take them with the corrective actions.
Well, and actually the theme I'm hearing here and throughout is it's about how you partner, but instead of that you move to a collaborative relationship instead of a transactional relationship. And I think that's a consistent theme coming out. We have just under 5 minutes left. So if you have any burning questions from the audience, please come in. Sorry, Christian. Of course,
if I may just add to that, actually, to Sasha's response as well, which was very good. What we have done, I think, and what helps is, of course, with the contracting partners is to reduce the payment terms in terms of the number of days. Of course, that's one thing that can be done to reduce the burden in terms of the cash flow issues if there are such, and then to make the payments more frequent to cover the actual cost base better, and of course advance payments. So these are the things that we are practicing. So I think that there could be even more things to figure out and to do. And I think one of the things that we see is that there needs to be more flexibility probably added into contracts to allow for such unforeseen circumstances. Of course, we cannot treat COVID any longer as force majeure, but I think flexibility can still be added into contracts to deal with such circumstances.
Yeah, and I think people will be looking to that going forwards. So I think we maybe have one time for the last audience question, and if there's still time, I have a couple of more questions. But UPS have recently announced a 6% increase in their costs for 2022. I mean, it's very specific, so maybe we do this in a general way. But what do you estimate was going to happen to freight costs in 2022? I mean, we're seeing inflationary pressures across the spectrum in all walks of life. So kind of my working assumption is it's going to be the same in freight. But Sasha, do you want to answer that one first?
I have a reference customer who just implemented a transport management process in 12 Asian countries in parallel. I know that they had some discussions regarding UPS and cost, and we had here some options to reduce the cost by automating the data flow, because also on UPS level, if they receive fully automated data input, right, with a high data quality, normally there is an option to reduce the commercial pricing with your service partner. This is one topic. Another topic is, so I would not only focus it to DHL. Another topic is always to make, if you have a solution where you can make multi-sourcing, right? In a transport management solution, you can place multiple service partner with different pricing conditions, and there you are able to make cherry picking on each specific topic, right? And there you have a possibility here to make best cost sourcing on case level, and optimize the data flow to your service partners. These are some options what you can do in the operational level. Unfortunately, I'm not a market specialist to make a forecast for the next years. This is unfortunately not my competence. Therefore, I cannot give the feedback.
No, I think that's fair enough, because we certainly won't hold that to you. But Christian, we've got about one minute left or so. So anything you would like to add to that?
Not very much. I understand that the pricing issue with deliveries and logistics is a challenge, of course. I don't want to particularly comment on any particular supplier because we are, of course, an organisation that undertakes public tendering. Yeah. But we do currently undertake procurement procedures for materials to buy framework agreements for consolidated material requirements such as ballast, rails, sleepers, so on. And we will, I'm sure, see in due course how big or small the issue might be. I think the bigger issue that has been experienced in the region has been the metal prices. So steel, I think, has been a big issue for everybody. So I think transport compared to that is not that big of an issue, but of course there are also things that can be done, like bulking the orders into one bigger sort of delivery and things like that. So let's see where the world takes us, I would say, in that regard.
Yes, I mean, it feels like we've been in a very uncertain world for quite some time, and there is still lots more uncertainty to come. So does uncertainty become the new normal as well? And I think things are going to change. They were changing anyway, and COVID has accelerated that, and it's how we adapt. And it's interesting, actually, from a Deloitte perspective, resilience is very much front and centre. And whether that be supply chain resilience, climate change resilience, kind of skills and labour resilience, I think COVID has actually mean people are holding a mirror up to how they can cope in times of crisis, or actually how they can cope in normal circumstances in the face of uncertainty as well, and how they take it forward from there. So that wraps up our webinar for today. So first of all, I'd very much like to thank Christian and Sasha. Some really, really interesting, thought-provoking information and presentations in there, as well as the answers to the questions as well. I think we can all go away from this with a far more a better understanding of what we can do and how we can operate in going forwards, and how we can build resilience into the supply chain. I've said it before, but I think there's a key theme about partnerships as well coming out of that. But also there was a lot of talk about kind of data and analytics and recognizing the different aspects of it and how we embrace technology as well. I'd also just like to thank the audience for all of your questions and participating. I hope you have found it as interesting as I have. And then finally, I'd just like to thank Supply-On for sponsoring this and enabling this to all go ahead. So without further ado, I'd just like to wrap it up and thank everyone for their time today. So over to you, Jules.
Thank you very much, Mary. Will uncertainty become new normal, and collaboration will become key to supply chain resilience. Thank you very much for today's debate. I think a lot of questions from the audience and a lot of interesting responses we've got from the speakers. So we've got a lot of kind of ideas. We've taken a lot of notes from today's debate. So thank you to the speakers, and thank you to Mary for hosting the debate. Just to give you the second, I guess, of a series coming up next week on identifying the right data to predict and mitigate real supply chain risks. So Sasha and Mary will come back for this session on the 9th of November. And they will be joined by Anna Schrager of Arriva and Claes Halvardsson from Barneno on a slightly different topic, but very much still on the supply chain issues, and talking about risks and use of the right data. I hope the audience will be able to join us again on this session. And just to give you some future information, so this coming up in February will be the 11th International Railway Summit. This is our annual event, and we're very much hoping that it will be a physical event. It looks like by the looks of it, we can hold it physically So we're coming back as a physical event in Berlin with support from the UIC, International Union of Railways, talking about sustainability is a kind of main theme of this summit, innovating rail for people, planet, and prosperity. So talking about social, environmental, and economic sustainability and what innovation can do for the rail sector. So do join us for this. If you have any questions, do getting in touch. There are opportunities to participate, to speak, to sponsor. So do get in touch with us if you're interested. And finally, again, this is a new project that we've recently launched, International Sustainable Railway Awards, once again together with the UIC. We're looking to celebrate and promote sustainability, the work that rail operators and infrastructure owners are doing on sustainability, helping them to share best practices and learn from each other. So the application deadline is coming up very soon, end of next week. So do check this out if you haven't yet. And simply Google International Sustainable Railway Awards, and you'll find more information about that. Yeah, thank you very much for today's session. Thank you to the audience members. Thank you to the sponsor, SupplyOn, and of course the speakers, Sasha Korbes, Christian Pirusalu, and the moderator, Mary Hewitt. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and I hope to see you at the next session on the 9th of November. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of the day, and goodbye.
Thank you. All the best.
Bye.